so good.
Yes.
You've been so good. After all the things I've been through, you've been so good. I'm going to bring you guys a word from the book of Philippians chapter 1. Now, I know somebody said you talked about Philippians last time, but Brother Thomas gave us the same, similar mission, so I'm going to go back to it. As you guys know, our first theme for the year was what? Seeking the lost. The second one was securing the saved. And I'm going to be speaking about serving the community. Now, you see, in Philippians 1, what's going on is, you see, Paul was in prison. Paul's in bondage right here because he was preaching the word of God in Rome. So he's writing to the church in Philippi, or Philip, how is it pronounced? Is it Philippi? The church in Philippi, and he's telling them, number one, how much he misses them. He's telling them that he loves them, telling them that he's been praying for them. And then he starts talking about something that's pretty interesting. He says, right around Philippians 1, verse number 12, he says, "Now I want you to know, brothers, that what has happened to me has really served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole place and the whole guard, and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. Because of my chains, most of the brothers in the Lord have been encouraged to speak the word of God more courageously and fearlessly." So what we see here is what happened is, Paul, he has a very unfortunate situation. But as a result of his situation, God's agenda was actually further. So when we see here a little later on in the text, Paul says he rejoices. Now, how many people know that that's rejoicing in prison? I don't know a whole lot, but it's somebody who's not focused on their circumstance, but they're focused on their purpose. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you guys to know. And we're going on down to verse number 21. In verse number 21, it reads, can somebody read that for me? It's too small.
For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain.
Keep going, I'm sorry, keep on.
If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. Yet which I shall choose, I cannot tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy in the faith.
So what we see here is that Paul is saying that if it was up to him, he would actually go ahead on and die, because he'd rather go on to be with glory and be with God. And that's almost less than itself to have that type of confidence in that you've been living out your purpose, that you don't even fear death. That's the only reason why I fear death, because I might not be ready when it comes. But Paul, he knows that he was ready. But what we want to see here is that, once again, Paul is not focused on himself. He's focused on his purpose. He's saying, well, if I go ahead on and live, then I can more souls will be saved. So that's all I want to say about purpose. But I want to tell you guys this up front. We have to know what our purpose is. Okay? I'm going to come to that a little bit later. Next thing I want to talk to you guys about is we have to adjust our mentality on pain. A friend of mine, he's actually sitting in the back, he sent us an article not so long ago, and it was basically the theme of the article was the amount of pain that you're able to endure can determine how far you go in life. And that made a lot of sense to me, because if you think about it, pain is kind of what stands in between us and what we want. See, we have a negative connotation about pain. We think pain is all bad, but really pain can be an indicator for growth. Does anyone not believe that? Does anyone here work out? Anybody go to the gym? You big as a house. I know you go to the gym. All right, let me ask you a question. So when you're at the bench press, and let's say you're doing a set of 10, which one of those 10 hurts the most? The 10th one, the last one. You know what's also funny about that is the last one is the one that you gain the most growth out of, because that's the one that you're pushing your muscle to the very limit about. So there seems to be a correlation between pain and growth. Okay, let me ask you another question. If you went to the gym and you left before you felt any pain, so you kind of went there and you left before you really felt any pain, what type of feeling do you have when you leave the gym? Unaccomplished. He doesn't feel accomplished. I haven't talked to him before this, by the way. He feels unaccomplished. It's probably somewhat of an empty feeling. A feeling of maybe a failure, a feeling of mediocrity. You see, that's also pain. But that's a different type of pain. I can tell y'all there's two types of pain. There's good pain, and then there's bad pain. You see, so how do we know the difference? Well, I'm glad you asked me that question. Okay, so good pain is attached to a purpose. Good pain is attached to a goal. Good pain gets you closer to where you're trying to get. You understand? So let's look at Paul. Paul is enduring some good pain, right?
Yeah.
He's in jail. He has a poor circumstance. He's in bondage. He can't roam freely, so he's enduring some pain.
Yeah.
But it says later on in the verse that he rejoiced. It says, verse 18. Verse 18 it says, but what does it matter? The important thing is that in every way, whether false motives or true, Christ is preached. And because of this, I rejoice.
Yes.
So the reason why he's rejoicing is because he's experiencing some of that good pain.
Yes.
That good pain. You know, when you're working out and you're pumping that muscle, it hurts. But once you're done with that, you get up, you feel kind of good. It's almost a euphoric feeling. It feels really good. That's called that good pain. Okay? So that's what Paul was experiencing. That's why he was rejoicing. The rejoice is because of that good pain. Now, bad pain, how do we know what is bad pain? Bad pain only leads to more pain.
Yeah.
That's the best indicator. So it's like the pain of feeling rejected. The pain of not knowing your purpose. The pain of a lack of accomplishment. The pain of feeling mediocre. That's bad pain because it only leads to more pain. And speaking of the word mediocre, we have to also change or adjust our view of that word as well. Because a lot of times we say we determine mediocrity versus success based on a dollar bill or something like that. But the problem with that is if money is our barometer for success versus mediocrity, then we serve a mediocre God. Because last time I checked, Christ rode into town on a donkey. He didn't ride into town on no grand chariot with 1,000 horses and some gold wheels to keep on spinning after he stopped. No, he rode into town on a donkey and he washed feet. That's the type of God that we have. But one thing about him is that he had impact. So maybe impact is more of a determinant of success versus mediocrity. You know, he had small money, but he had a high impact. So that just begs the question. How do we get impact? How are we able to create impact for ourselves so that we can feel successful? Because you see, a lot of us, we think that we might have led a mediocre life because we haven't accumulated all this wealth. But that's a lie. But we're living in that same pain as if it was the truth, which is hindering our purpose. But we have to realize that we all have the capacity right now to be successful. We all have the capacity right now to live out our purpose. And I'm sorry, I just gave it away. The way that we live with impact is that we live in a purpose. If Brett Favre gets drafted to the Lakers, is he going to have a great impact on that team? Because that's not his purpose. He's a football player. He's not a basketball player. So that's the reason. Okay, so what we see here is that once we're able to live in our purpose and have impact, then there's fulfillment. That's why Paul rejoiced, because he felt fulfilled. But the thing is, in order to get to that fulfillment, we have to go through the pain. And if you don't believe me, you can go on to Philippians 1 verses 27. Can somebody get that for me? 27 to 29.
Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent, I may hear that you are standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel, and not frightened in anything by your opponents. This is a clear sign to them of their destruction, but of your salvation, and that from God. For it has been granted to you that for the sake of Christ you should not only believe in him, but also suffer for his sake.
So we're called to suffer. So pain is a part of the program. You see, so we have to stop trying to avoid pain. Can a brother bring this bottles up to the why can't I gotta do that? That's avoiding the pain. But the thing is, when you're avoiding the pain, you're actually hindering yourself from your own purpose. You're hindering yourself from your own calling. You're hindering yourself. You see, the thing is, we can't avoid pain. We have to look for pain. We have to seek out pain. We have to invoke pain. We have to invite pain. A step further, we have to develop an appetite for pain. Because once we develop an appetite for pain, now we're seeking it out. Just like this man goes to the gym, he didn't get buff like that from sitting around and sporadically going to the gym. It's it's not random.
Right.
So what we have to realize now is that pain is also inevitable.
Yes, sir.
Inevitable.
What do you mean by that? How is pain inevitable? Well, if you're willing to go through the good pain to get to the place of success, then okay, so that you endured the pain. Okay? But if you avoid the good pain, what you're faced with is a disappointment and the feeling of unaccomplishment on the back end. So you're really not deferring the pain. You're really not avoiding the pain. You're deferring the pain. You're just pushing it forward. You're pushing it. There is no way to avoid it. It's either the good pain or the bad pain. It's up to you to decide which pain that you want. Now here's where it gets dangerous. You can push it forward for so long, but if you push it past that threshold of life and death, now you're looking at that pain on the other side of life. That's that bad pain. Because we already learned that bad pain only leads to more pain. And that is an eternal pain. So by definition, that's that bad pain. So you don't want that pain. Okay, so just like a mountain climber, let's say he's trying to get to the top of Mount Everest. He gets a quarter of the way through, he's going to be faced with a decision. He's going through a lot of pain at this point. He's like, is the pain of getting to the top greater or lesser than the pain of failing to accomplish my goal? Okay? So you probably ask yourself, why is he spend all this time talking about pain and purpose? I thought he was talking about servanthood. Isn't it supposed to be about servanthood? Well, we'll get to that. Let's go to chapter 2. Can somebody read for me verses 2 through 4?
Complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, and being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves.
So what God is talking about here is humility. And that's no secret. We've heard this passage a lot the last couple of months. And the thing is, a lot of times we hear we're called to be humble. We're called to have humility. And I think we might have a little bit of a misconception of what humility really is. Because we sit there and say, you know what, that's where I could do that. I'm not going to brag this week. You know, I'm not going to be cocky this week. I'm not going to be conceited. So that's humility. But that's humility at its surface. You see, humility is more than just a mindset. Because it has to eventually manifest into some type of action. Humility will drive you to do something. It's not just a state of mind. Do I have any visual learners in here? Okay, I'm visual. Okay, so I did the same demonstration a couple months back. So if this is God's will, my left hand, okay, and I might need this one. Okay, so this is God's will, my left hand, and this is our will, my right hand. Then obedience would look something like this, right? Because we're in alignment with God's will, right? Okay, so then what is this? That's disobedience, right? Because we're no longer aligned with God's will because we have this separation now between God's will and our will. Okay, so in order for us to come back into obedience, into alignment with God's will, we have to remove this area in the middle, okay? But this area in the middle has a name. It's called our ego. It's called our ego. So the greater our ego, the farther we come from God's will. So in order to come back in, you have to remove that ego. But there's a name for that. It's called humility. Humility is the removing of the ego. So obedience is just a byproduct of humility. A good way to indicate if you're living in humility or not is, am I being obedient to God's will? So it's, am I really humble or am I just not bragging? So you can't stop for yourself. If you cannot say that you're living in obedience with God's will, then you cannot say that you're humble. Amen. You cannot say that you're humble. Okay, so now that I gave you guys that, we have to realize, why did God call us to be humble? You see, He called us to be humble so that we might serve. You know, if I had some time, I would tell you about the characteristics of a servant, but I don't have time. But if anyone saw the movie The Butler, they kind of went over it a little bit there. A servant anticipates a need. A servant is invisible. A servant is empty when the room is. Let's say you're out to lunch and you ordered a Coke, and you drink your Coke and you put the Coke down, and now you're talking with your friends. You turn back around, your Coke is filled up. That wasn't magic. Somebody came and filled the cup up. But you didn't even see them. They were so good at their job that it happened before you even knew it. They were invisible. They anticipated the need. Now let's say that you didn't have such a good servant. So now you have to wave them down and say, hello, I need some Coke. They come bring you some Coke. Now you might say thank you to them. So now So now they're soliciting thank yous. But when they were acting great, there weren't any thank yous. So we can't be looking for accolades when we're serving, because when you're serving grit, you're not going to get them. Your accolade is knowing that you lived in your purpose. Your accolade is that good pain. That good pain. Because you know why we need that good pain? Because we have to build up our spiritual muscles. Just like we have our earthly muscles, we have our spiritual muscles as well. So what is servanthood? What is serving? You see, serving is more than just scooping macaroni and cheese when we have food after church. Serving is anytime you put someone else's will above their own. But what does this have to do with pain, Cameron? You still haven't answered the question. What does this have to do with pain? Well, humility is painful. It's painful to serve somebody above yourself. It's painful to put somebody else's will above your own. It's painful to serve, and you know what? It's almost not so bad when it's somebody that you like. You know, that might be like doing some 25s. You know, but if it's somebody that you're different towards, it's still really not that bad. You know, it's like some 30. You know, I'm big, so that's nothing. But it's somebody that you don't like, enter pain. That's when pain starts coming. But if someone that doesn't like you, someone that doesn't want good things to happen for you, someone that wants bad things to happen for you, that's pain. That's pain. But we cannot say, okay, I can serve her, I can't serve him. We can't do that, because what if Jesus did that? What if Jesus said, you know, I know I'm supposed to be here to serve out this purpose, to die for his people, and you know, I was going to do it, but this dude right here is trying to beat me to death, and he has an attitude, and he's trying to put something through my wrist, and it hurts, so I can't die for him. You can't really do that. So the question is, how was Jesus able to continue to serve this person as he's killing him? How was he able to do that? It's because he wasn't seeing the person, he was seeing his purpose. He was seeing the purpose. So just like Paul, when he was in jail, he saw his purpose. He saw his purpose. So see, and also it's because he valued his purpose. You see, a purpose has value. Yes, sir. I don't know if you ever did anything about purpose, but purpose has value. See, the reason why we're so comfortable in our paralysis is because we don't really value our purpose. You see, a purpose is an asset. You see, a purpose is worth something. It's supposed to be protected. So just like your grandma keeps the china up there, she protects it. It's worth something. Y'all not seeing this cut. Can I do a demonstration? Did you play in football when you were a day? Come on up there. I need somebody small. Somebody smaller. No. Chester, come on up here. I'm not small, but smaller. I'm smaller too. Okay, now look. Okay, so Orlando is us. He represents us, okay? I'm the purpose, okay?
You're the purpose.
That's the pain.
Okay.
So, in order for us to resist the pain, to protect the purpose, you gotta have some muscles. You gotta have some spiritual muscles. But we already learned how to get those spiritual muscles. That good pain. That good pain, okay? So try to sack me. Try to hinder me. Don't actually hit me. You see that? Because he had developed his spiritual muscles, he was able to withstand the pain in order to protect the purpose. See, you don't know me. You know your job. All right. Now switch places. Okay. Now, what happens when the problem gets big, but we haven't developed our spiritual muscles to that point? Now our purpose is at risk. Okay, don't actually tackle me, just kind of just tackle me. All right. Ready? So now, y'all better sit down. So now, the purpose was all hemmed up. The purpose wasn't going nowhere because the pain was too great. So it's really our threshold for pain to determine what we allow to hinder us from our purpose.
All right, that's good.
Okay, so we go a little bit further, and we see that the reason why Jesus was able to withstand that pain was because he knew how his purpose fit into the purpose of the Father. You see, what's God's purpose? Well, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. So God's purpose has been the same since day one, which is to reconcile us back to him.
Right.
That's all he's ever wanted. So the question is, how does servanthood, how does Jesus serving, how does us serving help us to reconcile the people back to God? Well, number one, we have to realize what God's purpose is to bring us back to him. So number one, how can we be reconciled back to God if we don't know God? So first, people have to come to know God. How do people come to know God? Through us. Through us. We're the body. All we have to do is function out with the head is already purposed. What the head is purpose is he wants us back. But the thing is, how does servanthood get people to know God? Like, I don't get the correlation. Well, let me tell you a true story. This happened to me this past Friday. 4 days ago, 100% true story. Okay? This answering the question of how does servanthood teach people about God. So in my job, I'm constantly working with different engagement teams, okay? Based on what client I'm going on, it's different teams. So I'm constantly meeting new people. And one of the first questions you ask somebody when you meet them is, where did you do your undergrad? So there was a new Asian girl. I said, where did you do your undergrad? And she said, BYU. Now that was peculiar to me because I know BYU is a Mormon school, and here she is an Asian. I never met an Asian woman. I wasn't going to say nothing, but the guy next to me happened to be Asian, so I guess he thought he could ask. He was like, so are you Mormon? She was like, yeah, because I've been Mormon my whole life. He was like, wait, so I've never met an Asian Mormon before. And the guy next to me was like, well, I know a Korean Mormon. His parents are Mormon, everybody's Mormon. I said, well, how did they become Mormon? He said, well, his parents moved to Utah from Korea. And when they moved there, the neighbors came and helped them unload all the stuff and put up all the furniture for them and helped them get settled in and were so kind that he was like, who are these people? So he said, who are these people? So then he got to see more about them and he said, you know what? I think I want to be a Mormon too. So then he became a Mormon, and then 30 years later, his son is a Mormon. He's been born into a Mormon family, and he's about to have a son of his own. He's about to be a Mormon because he comes from a Mormon family. So now we have 3 generations of Mormons, all after one act of servanthood. So that's how we're able to see how servanthood can help to bring the word to people. But the thing is, servanthood itself doesn't bring the word. So you see, what was our first thing? Seeking the lost, securing the saved. That's the what. That's what we're trying to do. Then we have serving the community and showing the Christ. That's the how. Okay? So in order to show somebody the Christ, they have to be opened up. So what servanthood does, it's the opening up. You see, through servanthood, see, people are able to be opened up to God. Just like, have you ever tried to pass the ball to somebody that didn't want the ball in basketball? It's hard. It's hard. I want the rock, but not everybody wants the rock. So giving is a 2-part process, right? You have to give, and you also have to have someone that's willing to receive. It's like trying to put something in the oven, but before you put it in, you have to open the door up. So servanthood is that opening up the door. You see, have you ever tried to I'm gonna say that one because I'm running out of time. But so we have to realize that we all have to serve. Okay, we all have to serve because that's how we grow the body. We can't just be normally doing normally things with normally people and only talking about Jesus to people that we met within these 4 walls, because through our actions, what we're saying with that is God sent his son to die for the normal church of Christ.
That's not true.
I guess that means this is just that holy ground. This is the Mecca. God said that's the spot. Gauge and Normandy. That's what I want to say. 200 folk right there. I need no Filipinos. I just need them. Okay, so the thing is, so if I'm a member and I'm not serving, then I'm just a part of a social clique or something. Because if all that makes me a Christian is the fact that I hang out with other Christians, that's not the purpose. The purpose is go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. The purpose is to grow the body. And you see, if we're not growing the body, we're actually shrinking the body. If it comes to a point where everybody in the church, everybody in the church, that's brother so-and-so, that's sister so-and-so, and that's him, that's her, then eventually it's going to start shrinking. People are going to start dying off. So if you're not growing fast and you're dying off, then you're shrinking church. Have you ever heard of a church that's literally died off, where they have to close the doors? Well, that church was dead long before they ever closed the doors.
Yes, sir.
Because it was dead the moment it stopped growing. It stopped serving.
Yeah.
It was just, they're like, it was like it's like a club or something.
Yeah.
That's not, God didn't call us to be a club. God did not call us to be a club. So in closing, because I know I'm running low, what does this look like in our lives? How do I know if I'm, okay, so let's say 5 o'clock rolls around, 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning rolls around. Your alarm goes off. And then you look at the clock, you are warm in bed, you don't want to get up, but you know you're supposed to get up to the homeless ministry, or help out with the homeless ministry. But you say, I work so much this week, I don't want to get up, it's cold out there, but you say, you know what, I'm focused on my purpose. So you get up out the bed and you're like, ooh, that's that good pain. And then you touch your foot on the ground and it's cold tile, and you're like, ooh, that's that good pain. And you finally get down there to the thing and you show somebody Christ, and somebody at it. That's the purpose. That's how it looks. But the question is, does that seem difficult to anybody? Because if it seems difficult, then we're looking too short-sighted.
Yes, sir.
You see, let me ask you a question. If somebody said, if you serve for one day, you can have a lifetime as a king, would you take that? Would you take that deal? Anybody? Yeah. I would take that. So what if somebody said you serve for your whole life, you can have an eternity in heaven? If you do the math, it's not even close. Which one's better? It's not even close. I'm not going to do the math on you guys. But the problem with it is, a lot of us, we live as if we don't really believe that there's another life. And the problem with it is it's really Drake's fault. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's really Drake's fault. He had this phrase called YOLO. And the thing about YOLO is a lie.
Yes, sir.
YOLO, what does YOLO stand for, young people?
You only live once.
You only live once. Okay, so the problem with that is, if you think you're only going to live once, and you live your life as if you're only going to live once, then ironically, you probably will only live once. But the thing is, I want to live twice. But you see, Drake, he lives as if he only wants to live once, so he's accumulating all this wealth, all these girls, all these women, and these clothes, these houses, because he's trying to create his own version of heaven right here on earth. Because he thinks this is it. But the question is, which heaven do you want? Do you want the heaven that you can create with your own hands? Or do you want the heaven created by the Creator? In order to get to that heaven, you have to be spiritually strong.
Yes, sir.
Spiritually in shape. Stacy, have you ever stumbled into some push-ups? Have you ever just stumbled into the gym and just landed on the thing? You have to be intentional about seeking out the pain. Seeking out the good pain, that is. Seeking out the purpose. Seeking out all that good stuff. So that's really all I have. I'm just going to leave you guys with one question. Can we commit to pain? Can we commit to, just say it if you mean. You don't have to say it, but just say, if you want to commit to pain, then 2014 is the year to do it. And all I have left, I have a little musical selection for y'all. Get the beat. I know Malcolm already rapped, so I'm going to keep the rap thing going. I know it's a little, different. It's not Sunday.
It's all right. That's all right.
I said basically, I'm done with living that life. It's been a while since I've been graced with thee. Living a lot, it's time to change or else I'm living and die. Cause we don't accidentally get in the sky. Look, you're searching for the truth or an excuse to keep living as fools. Our faith used to rule, but now it's in me split in two. It's cause you read the book don't mean the message finna get through. Cause there's a world of difference from reading and living it too. Don't get it confused. If you die in sin, you lose. Can't insert 2 more coins once you finish it's through. We submerged in the world, but don't swim in it too. Look, we ain't looking like angry traditionalists. Who they fighting against? Satan or instruments? The point is double the hate, some of us missing it. Lose the suit and tie, can't tell thugs from the Christian. And you listening? They can be living as hypocrites. Point the finger at the world, but can they just support their own ministers? Where's the humility? Die with the chivalry, but we can get it back through the pain. It ain't misery. Say I commit to the pain. Somebody say, say I commit to the pain. Say I commit to the pain. 2014, we gon' go with the thing. Say it again. Say I commit to the pain. Look, say I commit to the pain. Look, verse 2. Look, check it. Look, this world is so far gone that I gotta raise the bounty on it. Race is like a calculator, cause I'm counting on it. Folks trying to get high, smoke a bowl and bake, but how you focused on the roll when your soul is at stake? Now I ain't talking about filet mignon. Take God out the pledge, I'ma say it wrong, so when we gon' live righteous. 5 years, 10 years, but we ain't promised tomorrow, that point is very clear. You said a day to act safe, that's what we counting on, but what if we have less days than we accounted for? Now what you shouting for? I'm shouting because I got a mission. God's work ain't regulated by no tradition. To get new results, you gotta do something different. Or do we even want change? Hold the plot thickens. I think we do, so we gon' rally for the purpose. When we gon' say the world through the manner of a service, say I commit to the pain. Say, I commit to the pain. Look, say, I commit to the pain. 2014, we gon' go. Look, that's my time, y'all. That's my time.